Welcome back to Combat Zone. My name is Ray, and this weekend the UFC will have a brand new champ. Okay, quick disclaimer, I was born and raised here, so maybe it isn't such a sure thing. Let's start over. Welcome back to Combat Zone. My name is Ray, and this weekend the UFC will either crown a brand new champ or bring in a brand new era in the light heavyweight division. Normally when I research for one of these videos, it's a dominant champion against a challenger who might have something new to take the champion's crown, but this fight is something we haven't really seen before, and most of the questions comes from the Israel Adesanya camp. So let's start with question 1, moving up a weight class. We've seen this work really well for guys who are depleting their bodies to make weight. Guys like Dustin Poirier in featherweight, who was low ranked. He was getting a few wins, but not against the elite level opponents like he was hoping to. Then he turned that all around and become the best lightweight currently. Robert Whittaker was in welterweight, where he actually won the Ultimate Fighter, but as soon as he got to the actual UFC roster, he got 2 straight losses, which sent him to middleweight, where he did not lose until Izzy showed up and slept him. Adesanya, he doesn't seem to be depleting his body though. In fact, the middleweight champion has beaten most contenders in the division, so perhaps we need to look at the men who are very good in the lower weight classes before moving up. So let's bring on the champs. Heavyweight to light heavyweight is a very far jump in weight, hence why Jones has taken a year off to gain mass.
I'm cultivating mass!
Before battling it out with the winner of this month's fight between Stipe Miocic and Francis Ngannou. So we'll exclude DC. Cejudo won the flyweight title from Mighty Mouse on his second attempt and then defended against TPO Dillashaw before moving up and taking the newly vacant bantamweight title. However, Cejudo started his career at bantamweight. He had just one flyweight fight in his first 7, and he even started his career in the UFC with the bantamweight fight. And though Izzy has fought at a multitude of weights in his broader fighting career, when it comes to MMA, it's only been middleweight, and that's it. So, who's left? The Irishman did become champ, but he went from welterweight first, and perhaps that's the fight we need to take a closer look at. Comparing the two, they're both elite level strikers who moved up roughly 20 pounds inside of a year. Diaz did beat Conor in that fight, but during the countdown to UFC 257, we were introduced to Dr. Julian Darby, who was brought in after the first Diaz fight to fix Conor's conditioning after putting on all the extra weight. The Adesanya camp, on the other hand, have made the decision to not put weight on, whether that be because of the lack of time to both bulk and work on his conditioning in the case of McGregor, or deciding the size of Jan isn't as much of a factor due to Izzy's speed. In an interview with Combat TV, Adesanya says, "To be honest, there's really nothing much that's changed for this camp as in moving up in weight. We're not training for a weight class, we're training for an opponent and a certain style of fighting." Okay, well, how about we look at the opponent? In his last 4 fights, he's beaten 2 glorified middleweights, both were past their prime, followed by 2 KOs of Corey Anderson and Dominic Reyes respectively. The latter was a fight where 75% of the betting public were expecting Reyes to come out on top, due to his 12-fight win streak that only ended against John Jones earlier in the year, in a fight that fans and pundits alike thought Reyes should have won. But it was Jan who made it look relatively easy, picking up the vacant title after a short hook sent Reyes stumbling across the cage. Watching the fight live back in September, I thought Jan could control the light heavyweight division, with the lack of top contenders and very few up-and-comers. However, watching again last week, with the context of Israel Adesanya, well, I feel we could be seeing a repeat of the last 2 middleweight fights, where both Costa and Romero just stood and looked mesmerized, or perhaps paralyzed, by Izzy's feints and traps. An alternative to that is something we have seen a small amount from Jan, but that is rushing in and getting caught with the same check hook that slept both Robert Whittaker and Paulo Costa. The only question that stops me from calling this an Adesanya win now is the weight difference. Keep in mind, a few years ago on the Joe Rogan podcast, Izzy said he walks around at about 203 pounds. So it's likely that he will be that weight when he enters the octagon. Jan, on the other hand, has to weigh in the day before at 205, but he will rehydrate and get closer to 215. Is that difference going to be enough to stop Adesanya from being able to finish, keeping the Polishman's power in the fight for the whole 5 rounds? Because, let's be clear, Izzy can be hit. He's been hit and rocked late on against Gastelum and then early on against Romero. So, if the timing, precision, and speed aren't enough to get the much bigger man out of there, it could be a long night of staying out of range and poking at the lead leg and body. I may be being biased here and I'm no professional, but I ask anyone to watch Jan fight and tell me why I'm wrong about this. If you don't care about doing your own research, then let us know how much you believe Jan Blachowicz can land the shot that will KO Adesanya. Until then, I've been Ray from Combat Zone, and we'll see you then.